Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. The case that I'm going to be looking into today is the disturbing case of Armin Meiwes, and I am sorry if I've said that wrong. I have tried to say it correctly, but I am absolutely useless. And just straight away, I'm going to get it right out there that this case is disturbing, very disturbing and gruesome, and it's a warning for anybody who does not wish to watch this. This case is about cannibalism. So yeah, if you want to give this case a dodge, I don't blame you. But if you stick around, you might find it interesting like I did. I already was aware of this case, but it has recently been suggested to me, and being able to dive deeper into it, you know, I learned things that I didn't actually know in the first place. So yeah, I found it interesting. It was suggested by Brittany, so thank you for that. I appreciate any suggestions you guys have. And of course, if you have any more, then please do let me know. Armin Meiwes was born on the 1st of December in 1961 in Kassel, Germany. Again, I'm so sorry if I pronounce any of these wrong. I'm not very good at my own language, so never mind trying to pronounce anybody else's. So yeah, I don't mean any offense by it, I'm rubbish. So just a little bit about Armin's parents. His dad was 21 years old and his mum was 40 years old, so you know, quite a big age gap. Not that I'm judging anyone, because I wouldn't do that. But his father was actually a police officer, and so he had a decent job. He decided that he was going to save up all the money that he could and buy his family a house. Now, he didn't just buy them any house, he bought them a mansion. Yes, a mansion. A 36 bedroom, 16,000 square foot mansion in Germany, which is just like madness. Like, how he managed to save up for that is just brilliant. You know, he wanted to do that for his family, and so he did. Anyway, as a child, Armin said that he led a very lonely childhood. His father was quite a stern man who was largely disinterested in his son. Not only that, his mother was also very controlling and very manipulative. She was very jealous and insecure as a woman, and just would constantly be accusing her husband of infidelity. It didn't take long before she fell pregnant with Armin, and basically it was to try and keep them together. Rather than actually have a child, she just wanted to keep a husband. But, you know, their relationship stayed pretty toxic though. The father had two other sons from a different relationship, which I believe moved with him, and so that ended up with 3 children, with Armin being the youngest. Now, his mother was very possessive over him, still argued with his father like all the time, and she would actually do things like threaten to kill him, and that was just like a normal thing within their household. When Armin was 5, his other 2 siblings, who I believe were teenagers at the time, decided that they'd had enough of this and they were just going to move out, and so they left. They just picked up their stuff and they left. Armin would describe his mother as cold. She didn't show him any affection at all. They didn't really have a good relationship, let's just say. She never really showed him any love, and you know, they never had a good relationship because of all that. She would like shout at him and make him clean all of the house, and she would never do it herself because why not? You've got a child there who can do it for you. Just things like that. Bearing in mind at the time he was about 6 years old. At the age of 8, his parents' marriage actually ended up breaking up. His father one day just left. He basically stormed out of that house and just drove off, never looked back, and they never saw him again. He didn't say a word as to the reasoning behind it or anything like that. He just left. Armin was just trying to keep himself busy, really. You know, he was very lonely, and he ended up doing a lot of reading, and he read the book Robinson Crusoe. This book had a section about cannibalism in, and it fascinated him. By all counts, he was a pretty well-behaved boy, apart from the fact that he would become obsessed over eating another person, and he was literally like 10 at this time. He also really enjoyed the tale of Hansel and Gretel, especially the section where Hansel is getting fattened up to be cooked and eaten. He decided that he was going to create an imaginary brother who he called Frankie, and Frankie was the one that he vented his first cannibalistic thoughts to. After all, Frankie would actually listen to him, which was something that his mother never did. At the age of 12, he began to fantasize about eating his friends so that they would become a part of him and stay with him forever. Skip forward a few years, Armin is now 19 and he has decided that he is going to leave home and he is going to go and join the army. So he did. He joined the West German army, and that was really good for him. he felt so in place, he felt at home and just so comfortable in his skin in the army. He actually spent 12 years in the armed forces training to become a professional soldier. Because he felt so comfortable there, it stopped him from chasing after his fantasies of wanting to eat people. So yeah, like I said, it was really good for him. During his time in the army, he actually met a woman and he befriended her, but then nothing ever really came of it, and he began to wonder as to whether he was gay. He even asked his friends, like, do you think I'm gay? And they would reply, like, that is for you to figure out. You know, I can't tell you as to whether you're gay or not, or whether I think you're gay. You need to figure that out yourself. His friend did go on to say that he did think Armin was gay, and that it was like Armin would be the last to find out about it, kind of thing. Like, he just wasn't sure, whereas other people who saw him were. Armin then took up drinking, and he would drink a lot, and he would also drive, which is obviously, drinking and driving is very dangerous. Don't ever do it. Ever. He ended up having 2 car accidents whilst drunk driving. As a result of that, he ended up getting booted out of the army, of course. He was 32 years old at the time, and he decides that he's going to move back into the mansion with his mother. She was very ill at this point. Obviously, all these years have passed by. She's a lot older. She can't really take care of herself anymore, and so he decides that he's going to move back in with her and he's going to look after her. And I mean, it's not like they were on top of each other. They had 36 rooms, so, you know, he could literally live at the other end of the mansion to her if he wanted to. So they had enough space for him to move back in, let's just say that. Now he's no longer in the army. He decides that he is going to go for a different job, and he circles computer engineering, which he did, and he did really well in. He gets a job in it and excels in his work. In 1991, Tim Berners-Lee published the first ever website out to the public, and of course it grew into this beautiful place, well, mainly beautiful place we have today. Obviously sometimes it is a very ugly place, so yeah, I guess a bit of both worlds on that. But I wouldn't be here talking to you guys without this place, so, you know, everyone's grateful for the internet. It's just got a lot of bad things on it, as well as good. Anyway, back then it was brand new, like brand new. It was all really exciting, and most importantly, it wasn't really policed, I guess. It wasn't monitored for illegal activity, and so there was a lot of illegal stuff going on that largely went undetected. I mean, like many other people at the time, were looking around the net, typing in different things, seeing what would come up, and obviously he is interested in cannibalism, so what does he search up? Cannibalism, and he finds a community of cannibals, which, just saying those words sounds completely wrong, but here we are. It was very basic because the internet was very basic. It was just like a forum where people over the World Wide Web could all get together and chat and, you know, talk about cannibalism and eating people mainly, which is pretty disturbing. The thing when Armin saw this though is he realised that there were other people out there like him, which made him feel not as lonely, and it made him feel really good about himself. He ended up creating his own website where he could just talk about cannibalism. And there wasn't just one website, there were a few. He ended up finding something called the Cannibal Cafe, and he would chat on that a lot. Now this website no longer, I've tried to look it up, can't find it. Apparently there is something called the Wayback Machine, which is an archive of lots of old websites and things like that. And you can still find it on there. So I've heard. I personally couldn't find it, but I don't know how to work it. So, I mean, if you guys could know how to work it and find it, please do let me know, because apparently it's still there, but I couldn't find it personally. And even if you can find it, the posts that Armin posts were no longer on it because they were deleted because of everything that went down. But there were still other posts by other people on there. So yeah, I'd be interested to know if anyone could actually find that, if they know how to work that website, because I'm useless and I have no idea. Anyway, people would put on this website the cannibal fantasies that they had. And Armin would kind of become internet famous from it, essentially. He would do things like go down to the butcher's, buy a slab of meat. He would then kind of form it to make it look like a body part or something like that. And then he would take photos of himself with this meat, pretending that it was a person. And people blew up for that, because here they are talking about the fantasies and, you know, not actually acting on it. And their Armin is, in their eyes at least, he wasn't acting on it, but they thought he was. He is going out and eating people and that was what they wanted to do, but they just didn't have the goals to do it, whereas Armin did, even though he didn't at the time anyway. On the 2nd of September in 1999, Armin comes home from work and he goes to his mother's room to check on his mum, and he actually finds that she has passed away. Now, normally, if your mother passes away, you are devastated, broken, you know, inconsolable. But Armin wasn't. He was actually quite happy that she'd finally gone. And you can't really blame him. They didn't have a relationship at all. She wasn't a very loving mother. And so, you know, he cared for her when she needed him, but he was just happy that the abuse and the control she had over him was no longer a thing. With no other close family, no girlfriend or anything like that, and obviously now no mother, he went on to build like a sanctuary in his house for himself. He even ended up later down the line getting this mannequin that he kept for company, but I will mention more on that later on. He basically felt that with her gone, he could fully delve into his cannibal fantasy life. Now, not that she knew anything was going on, because she didn't, and he probably could have made up a room somewhere in there and she never would have found it because she was poorly. But, you know, I just guess that her just being there held him back from that, and now she was gone, he was going to do it. And so he went into his house and turned one of the rooms into a cannibal room? I don't even know what you would call that. But it's a room where he planned on taking his photos in and things like that. He developed a great interest in adult content, such as things that included torture and pain. This is when he decided that he wanted to finally eat some people. But he didn't do it in the traditional way where some murderers go out there, kill someone, and then eat their flesh. No, he didn't do that. He wanted somebody to volunteer. And so he goes on these websites, he makes an advert for a volunteer to be eaten. Yeah, you heard that right. He literally wants somebody to come forward to give themselves to him so that he can eat them, and that is what they wanted. Which sounds crazy. He puts a post on the Cannibal Cafe for someone who was willing to be eaten, and he was being serious. So they had this thing where they role played on it, where they put like RP at the end of it, and they had a role play where they would just talk about it and pretend like it's happening, I guess. But this didn't have that. He was being deadly serious. He posted on a few different sites. He would post it in German, in English, just to make sure that, you know, anyone and anyone could answer. Anyone and everyone could answer. One of them actually said, "I'm in search of a young boy between 18 and 30 years old. If you have a normal build body and you are willing to die, then come to me. I am butchering you and eat your horny flesh." It just, yeah. I don't know what that is, but apparently he did. The fact that he was looking for a volunteer and not wanting to murder someone was something he made very clear. He wasn't going to do this to some poor unsuspecting victim that didn't want it. He wanted someone that knew what would happen and what he was going to do and was up for it. So at some point some guy comes forward and says that he's up for it. They exchange a few emails and it ends up with Armin inviting him over to his mansion. This guy comes in, he lies down on the table, and then he begins to feel ill and tells Armin that he doesn't want to do it anymore, and Armin's like, yeah, fine. He lets him get up, he lets him leave the house, and this guy goes home. And that just reiterates that Armin wanted a willing volunteer. This guy no longer wanted to do it, and he just let him go. He was very gutted that that didn't happen, but, you know, he started focusing on creating more of a buzz around his infamousy, I guess. He went on to make a papier-mâché body, made it look like a person, took loads of photos with it, and got a massive buzz in the community for that. This is also where the mannequin comes in. He finds this mannequin that was being chucked out, and so he takes it home. Again, paints it all, makes it look like a person, and takes photos with it. And they're just raving about him, thinking that he's fully killing and eating all these people. They really idolize him and look up to him as a result of that. The community was going mental over him, like he's killed and eaten so many people at this point. Our hero. Again, a very weird thing to say under the circumstances. The mannequin was also thought to be company for him because he was all alone, so yeah. At this point, he's basking in his famous glory and he really, really wants his fantasies to become a reality. So he goes to one of the rooms and he turns it into a kill room, I guess. It had no windows. He put in a cage for his victims. and he had meat hooks hanging from the ceiling. I'm sorry, I warned you, it's a disturbing case. And then he carries on putting his adverts out, looking for a young man between 21 and 40 years old who wants to be eaten. He of course got responses to all of his adverts. People would reply and then not go through with it, not really be serious about it. Others thought it was just one big joke. That was until one man, and I apologise if I've said his name wrong, again, profusely. He was called Bernard Jürgen Brandes, I think, and he contacted Armin. Bernard Jürgen Armando Brandes was 34 years old at the time, and he was an engineer from Berlin. He had a wife, and he ended up telling her that he was curious and wanted to experiment with men. Didn't actually say that he was gay. Maybe it's because he didn't want to upset his wife, or he just wasn't sure yet, or whatever. But of course, admitting those kinds of things causes a lot of issues in a marriage, and it ended up splitting them up eventually. He was also interested in the cannibal websites and would frequent them a lot, and he sees this advert from Armin and decides to contact him. Again, they email each other a few times, they talk about it, and they talk about the best way for a man to be consumed, and then his plans for his body afterwards. And Bernard Jürgen was full of ideas too. He would come forward and say that he wanted his skull to be an ashtray. Now, as disturbing as that sounds, he also had another request, which I find more disturbing. He wanted his penis to be cut off, and for both of them to eat it. Yeah, that's just so strange to me. So obviously that was whilst he was still alive, because he wanted to eat too. So he wants this man to chop off his sausage and then feed it to him. I mean, it's just weird. But apparently it was one of his massive fantasies to chop up his own sausage and eat it. Nobody would ever think that that was somebody's fantasy, like, ever. As insane as all this sounds, Armin later admitted that he didn't want to be disrespectful to Bernard Jürgen's requests, and said that he wouldn't do anything that he didn't want him to do. That if he wanted to be eaten in a specific way, that he would honour that and he would do it out of respect. I mean, he's literally asking a man to eat his penis after he's chewed on it first. And as a mark of respect, he's like, yeah, okay. I mean, each to their own, I guess. Anyway, they chat for a while and then they plan everything out and set a date for it. On the 9th of March in 2001, Bernard Jürgen arrives at Armin's house and they engage in some sexual relations. Armin gives Bernard Jürgen about 20 sleeping pills, I believe, and plies him with booze and cough syrup from what I've read. He does this because he doesn't want him to feel any pain, so he wants to try and numb it all because he doesn't want the guy in any pain, which is very thoughtful of him. And he takes them willingly because it's not like he's trying to roofie him or something like that. He basically tells him why he's giving them him, and he just takes them. He tells him that he's going to record it so that he can relive it over and over, and most likely you guys know what he's probably going to do over it. So anyway, he sets up this video as Bernard Jürgen lies down on the table. Apparently, initially he insisted that Armin should try and bite off his penis, but of course that didn't really work, and so ultimately he uses a knife to remove it. So as he starts cutting, Bernard Jürgen screams out in horrific pain, but the screams only last for about 20 to 30 seconds before the penis is off. He said that the blood squirted out like a fountain, and that was probably from one of the little internal arteries that supply the blood supply. Bernard Jürgen apparently tried to eat some of his own penis raw, but couldn't because it was too tough. Apparently said it was too chewy. Not only that, he'd lost, some blood at this point, so he's probably weak from that as well. None of them really liked it. It was a bit gross. He said it was too chewy, disgusting, and inedible, and Armin was disappointed that it tasted gross, and he decides that he's going to try and cook it. So he does. He goes into the kitchen, he puts it in a frying pan. He puts salt, pepper, wine and garlic in with the sausage that he's cooking. He then apparently fried it with some of Bernard Jürgen's fat, but he burnt it, and by that point it was too burnt to be eaten, and yeah, he then chopped it up and gave it his dog instead, which, poor dog. So at this point, Brendan Jurgen has bled a lot. Like, it's bleeding, he's bleeding all over the floor, and it's really, really messy, which he didn't really want, and so he decides that he's going to take him to the bathtub where it can drain down the drain and he can wash it all away. So that's what he does. His plan was to wait until he bled out there. So he comes in every 15 minutes, you know, like keeps checking on him. No, okay, I'll come back. And then he does. He really thought the process would be quick and that he would die from bleeding out very quickly, but there aren't actually any major arteries running through the penis, so it's very difficult for somebody to actually bleed out that way. Unless they have a circulatory problem, they're more likely to clot up and just it stops bleeding on its own. They're just not very likely to bleed profusely through that enough to actually bleed to death. But obviously he didn't know that. He thought it would be very quick, and it just wasn't happening. So poor Bernard Jurgen is not dying, and you know, he decides to give him a bit more time, so he bangs out his Star Trek book and starts reading that. Like, literally, that is what he did. He admits to doing that. So he's there reading his Star Trek book. About 3 hours later, he goes in, and guess what? He is still alive. So he goes over to him and like says, "I'm sorry, but I'm gonna have to slit your throat because you are just taking too long to die." And he ends up kissing him before taking the knife and then slitting his throat, which obviously he bleeds out very quickly from and passes away. After he finally passed away, Armin takes the body from the bath and he puts him up on the meat hooks. I mean, I'm sorry, but this is just what he did. He then cuts him up into pieces, putting different sections in the freezer for his next meals. He also photographed the entire thing so that he could put it on his websites and get more intimacy for actually killing a person this time. And of course, he also took the video. He went on to bury the skull in his garden and tasted flesh for the very first time after wanting it for so many years in his life. Now, this information is from Armin in interviews because he did a lot of interviews in the beginning. So this information is actually his words and things that he had done. So he said that he decorated the table with nice candles. "I took out my best dinner service and I fried a piece of rump steak, a piece from his back. Made what I call princess potatoes and sprouts. After I prepared my meal, I ate it. The first bite was of course very strange. It was a feeling I can't really describe. I spent over 40 years longing for it, dreaming about it, and now I was getting the feeling that I was actually achieving this perfect interconnection through his flesh. The flesh tasted like pork, but stronger." He then put a lot of the pieces that he cut up into kind of a Ziploc bag and stored them in the freezer under pizza boxes to try and hide them a little bit. He then goes back to his websites and he posts all the pictures of the person that he has just killed and eaten, who wanted to be eaten. Let me just slot that in there. It was voluntary. And this time they were actually real. Once more, they idolized him. They go crazy for him. And this is just my opinion, but I feel like he thrived off that because he kept making things so that he could make these pictures. Like, he did the meat at first, then he made the paper mache body, then he got the mannequin and he made it all look like that was an actual person. So he kept coming back and doing it over and over. It was like he loved the attention that he was getting from that. And it's probably because he didn't get any from his family. But again, that's just my thoughts on it. Over the next 6 to 8 months, he would eat parts of the body. And if that wasn't grim enough, I'm going to go even further. He would use it as pizza topping. He ate it for breakfast. He just ate it whenever he could. It was just his food supply. This supply did dry up in late November. Well, he still had some left, but you know, he was getting low. So by sort of late November, early December, he decided that he needed another volunteer. He goes back to his websites and he advertises again. This time there is an Austrian student on the website and he realizes that, hey, maybe this guy has actually killed someone. I think he has. And he actually contacts the police and tells them his thoughts. And that if he had murdered someone, it looks like he's trying to, you know, get someone else. He's trying to take another victim. On the 10th of December in 2002, the police go to Armin's mansion. They start looking around, but they don't really find anything initially. Now, I don't know where his kill room was, but there was 36 rooms in this place. So yeah, they would have to search quite a long time to find it. So they didn't really find anything initially, but then they go to his fridge and they open that up and they see 50 pounds of meat, and he tells them that it is wild pig meat. Is that just a boar? Is no wild pig not just a boar? I don't know. Anyway, he tells them that it's that, and then another officer decides to take a closer look and he sees skin. So they then go ahead and ask Armin, is this human flesh? And he tells them yes, yes it is. And then he just admits to everything. The photos, the video, literally everything. He just tells them. He doesn't lie about anything else, literally. Yeah, he initially lied about what the meat was, but after that he just doesn't tell another lie, he tells the complete truth. On the 30th of January in 2004, Armin was convicted of manslaughter, and he was only sentenced to 8.5 years in prison. This really got people riled up, it really got them very mad, but his defense put forward that Bernard Jürgen was a willing participant. They found all of the emails to essentially back that up and prove it, and so it's quite a strong defense, really. Not only that, they also found out, which they didn't really know about, that cannibalism wasn't actually illegal in Germany at the time, which is just like, how does that even happen? But when I looked into it, it was just so rare and extreme that they hadn't even made a legislation on it. So yeah, they just never expected that to happen. And that really threw the lawyers for six, because it wasn't even illegal what he'd done. The eating a person part anyway. Armin was charged with murder for the purposes of sexual pleasure, along with disturbing the peace of the dead. They showed in court 19 minutes of the video that he took, which probably traumatized a lot of people, because who wants to see anything like that ever? But yeah, they had to just sit there and watch it. They were saying that he should have gotten a life sentence for murder, so they ended up with a retrial. They fought the point that Bernard Jürgen was not of the right mind to be able to give consent to something like that. On the 10th of May 2006, Armin was convicted of murder and sentenced to life. And he is still in prison to this day. I believe he is now about 59-year-old, and he no longer eats meat. He is a complete and full vegetarian. He says that he is now done with interviews. Like, he did quite a lot of interviews when around the time it happened and things like that, and just after, and he doesn't want to do them anymore. And I mean, who can blame him? But you can easily find those on YouTube and things like that. They're all there. Armin admitted that what he did was wrong, and he knows it's wrong, but he can't unfortunately undo it. In 2020, so just last year, he hit the headlines again when people found out that he was actually allowed out of prison. They would take him over to a federal state with 2 guards, and he would have to wear a disguise, but he was allowed to walk through the towns. It is said that he is still very friendly and very polite, and that he is literally a model inmate. The guards have said that they could literally leave the door open all day and nothing would happen. He would not try and escape, he would not try and leave, nothing would happen. So some people do think that he became so obsessed with consuming another person was because of his fear of being left alone. Obviously due to his past, and he developed a deep desire to essentially completely absorb another person, to become one with them, so that he would never ever be alone again. So yeah, what do you guys think on this case? Please let me know in the comments below. I'm a poet and I didn't know it. But yeah, that is the end of the case. If you guys have enjoyed the video, give me a big thumbs up, subscribe to my channel. All the people that support me, I appreciate you more than you'll ever know. Anyway guys, that's all I have today on the case of Armin Meiwes. You know what I'm trying to say. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, bye.